Okay, the next piece that we are going to learn about is knight. Knights are a very special and amusing piece in the game of chess because that's the only piece that can jump over your own forces and reach to the other side. They have a very special way of moving, and I request you all to pay attention to the conditions under which it moves. It moves two steps forward, backward, sideways, and then one square to the right or left. Let me explain how it moves pictorially now. It can go two steps forward, to the left, or to the right, and which means it will directly land on to this square or this square if it chooses to go forward. Similarly, if it chooses to go backwards, again left or right, which means it can either reach here directly or here directly. Again, you can see that four squares it can go either forward or backward. Alternatively, it can also choose to go sideways, two steps forward, left and right, which is these two squares it can directly jump into. Or it can go right, sideways, left or right, either here or here. So the knight can go from this one square, it can reach to c3, c5, d2, d6, f2, f6, g3 or g5. So it can just jump to any of these squares. And remember, you cannot capture anything on the way. Like say there is a pawn, your opponent's pawn here. Although I say that it jumps here, it doesn't mean that you can capture everything on the way and reach here. It just means that you can, if there is your opponent pawn here or any piece here, you can go ahead and capture this way. That's allowed. But you cannot capture anything that it is crossing over. For example, there is a pawn either on this square or this square or this square. You cannot capture any of it. It can only jump over it and reach here. So that's how the knight moves. Let's study further about the knight movements and their special features, right? So I bring in the next position. In this position, it is white's turn to play. Now I challenge you to find the number of squares that it can go from this b1 square. I give you about 5 seconds. The clue is that it can reach about 3 squares from here. Can you spot all the 3 squares? That's right. The first square is a3. It can go to c3 or it can go to d2. So these are the 3 squares from its starting position that it can reach. It looks like a very limited number of moves for a piece, but then trust me, when it jumps here, can you calculate how many squares that it can reach? I give you about 10 seconds, or maybe if you want more time, feel free to pause the video. Think about it. How many squares can this knight move? Okay, I hope you took your time. I'm going to reveal the answers. It can, of course, go back to b1 from where it came from, or to a2, or to d1, or to e2. At the same time, it can go to e4, or d5, or b5, or a4. As you can see, it has such a very complicated and amusing way of moving from one square to the other. And the moment it moves from its starting position, towards the center, it can reach as many as 8 squares at any point in time. So that makes this piece a very important and interesting piece. Now let's say black wants to move this knight. What are his options? Again, I give you time. Maybe you can think. Okay, I hope you found all the squares that this knight can move. It's a6, c6, and d7. Let's say this knight goes to c7. Now, can you see what are the squares it's attacking from this square? That's right. It can go back to a7, b8, a5, b4, d4, e5, and e7, and d8. So these are the 8 squares that this knight can reach to. And one more part that I wanted to mention here is the knight can attack two pieces which are split far apart in one single move, just like this. It's attacking the king as well as the pawn in this case. This is called a fork. A knight can fork pieces while other pieces can only double attack or pin or something like that, which we will explore later. For now, knight is the only piece that can give fork to your opponent pieces. So I will show you another position and I want you to get used to their movements because they are a bit tricky. Unlike bishops, they are not so linear. They have their own dynamic ways of moving. So I give you one puzzle to solve and get comfortable with their movements. So here you see white as a knight. Can you think of ways to pick up all these black pawns only with the help of your knight? All right. Feel free to pause the video. Maybe if you want, you can set it up on your chessboard and try to find out. It's not easy to visualize. So I give you all the time that you need. Feel free to pause the video and I will be revealing the answers in a moment. All right. I hope you thought through and found these interesting moves. First, knight goes to b5. From there, he can jump to d6. From here, he can go and jump to b7. And from there, he can jump to a5. Now, he has to run to the other side of the board. So, knight c4, knight e5, knight g6, and knight takes pawn, and then knight goes to f5, then knight to g7, and then knight takes this pawn. So that's all about the knights. I hope you got a very good understanding of how knight moves and what is a fork, and get comfortable by practicing this quite often because knights are very tricky for beginners to memorize how they move and then look into the kind of patterns in which they move to capture the pawns. See, even though this pawn was like in adjacent squares, it took almost like 3 moves to capture the other pawn. The moment it captured here, it took 1, 2, and 3. So it's a very tricky maneuvering of pieces that you should get comfortable with. And that brings us to the end of this video on how chess pieces move, their special movements, and also the conditions under which you can perform certain actions like en passant, castling, and so on. I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to write your comments, and if you have any specific questions, please drop down a message. I will try to answer all your questions, and any specific learning that you wanted, do let me know. I will make a new video on that.